Okay, everyone. My name is Victoria Saucedo. I am the current Chief Financial Officer and Treasurer for the Judy Nicholson Foundation. And tonight, this is our Young Voices on Kidney Cancer panel that we are hosting for the month of March. We are excited to welcome everyone tonight to our panel. And we would especially like to extend a thank you to our two sponsors for tonight, which is Merck Pharmaceuticals and Exelexis. They provide a lot of support for our foundation that allows us to host educational programs like this panel tonight. For our next question, we know that navigating kidney cancer at a younger age, like many of you touched on, means leaning on support in different ways. So for this next question, I'm interested to hear from Katie and Anna Maria about what role your support system has played in your journey, whether that's from your family, friends, or your own healthcare teams. Did you feel that being younger impacted the kind of support you received? Katie, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah. So this is a kind of, again, I think complicated question. And I think it really does touch on being younger in this scenario. I think this happens for a lot of people, but especially those who are younger, and especially of the age that you might be having families, your friends might have young families. For me, my support really came from the kidney cancer community and my husband. My parents were there as far as they were a phone call away or a text message to check in. But really, my support came from the community and my friends. I think being young, this Anna Maria touched on this. And I think it's when I think back of before I had cancer and the things that I said to people who had cancer, right? I was saying all of those things. And it's half of a reassurance. You want to comfort the other person and try to take away their suffering or their thoughts. And then I think it also comes from a perspective of people are hurt, like other people are hurt by our diagnoses as well, too. And it doesn't just affect us. And so I think sometimes when they say those things, it's a self-soothing mechanism as well, too. And so, but it's really hard when you're the person that's going through that with cancer. You just want people to be on a level playing field. And so it can go back to what Sid said of it feeling really isolating. For me, I know everybody approaches it very differently. For me, I really leaned on the kidney cancer community and honestly, my healthcare providers. I think a lot of the reason why I advocate as much as I do now, and I've become the advocate I am now, is a direct relationship to the physicians that I had, both from the care that they provided to me, but also how much they taught me in my appointments. And this very unique scenario that even, as I mentioned, being diagnosed during COVID, I very distinctively remember going through treatment, especially like in the middle of the pandemic when I had moved to a new city. I remember I didn't see anybody outside of my husband every single day and my physicians. I was still seeing my doctors every few weeks when I'd go for lab works or for scan. And they were the only people who knew what I was truly going through and actually had a general idea of what my life looked like at that moment. None of my family, none of my friends had any idea. Like they heard the highlights that I shared on social media, but didn't really know what it was like to go through that. And so I remember as I started doing better and my scans started getting more spaced out, I had this weird feeling of there's my safety net and there's the people who understand what I'm going through. And I shifted more into the advocacy space, but I think it was both a helping me through treatment, but also teaching me how to empower myself is really what helped me through those things. So I think support systems are super crucial. I absolutely would not be here if it wasn't for my husband who helped me through every step of the way. But I think support systems can look different for everyone. And just because you might not have family or friends nearby to help in the way that kind of, I think people traditionally think when you think of somebody being surrounded by their family and friends around cancer, doesn't mean that you can't find support elsewhere. And again, my family and friends were there, it just not quite in the way that you might have expected with a diagnosis, given all the circumstances.
It's great. Thank you.
I'd say I'd agree with Katie on that last point. It's actually really interesting. So my older sister had cancer when she was younger. So I was way before I had my diagnosis. I was already exposed and a caregiver to someone who had cancer. But when my father passed away, we stopped talking. And I won't get into that drama, but it had been at that point when I was diagnosed by 5 years. So my cancer ended up bringing us back together. And she ended up being a massive source of support for me because I still struggle a lot with the dialectical thinking between being angry and being grateful. And so she really helped me through a lot of that. I think Katie and the rest of the Chromie Six, as we're called, they were the first people that I really connected with when I was first diagnosed. And so they were the people, even to this day, who like I go first to when it comes to any health issue or other things too, obviously, but like anything like that, like they're the ones I lean on because you guys are the ones who really understand exactly what I'm going through. And then I was able to really build a community with other active people who are African cancer survivors. So at that point, I was a kickboxer. I had a couple of friends who are still really close. We're really close today. Who were in my corner from the gym I was at. And then being really into that and into lifting weights. I won't get into that whole story, but I realized that there was a very big need for people like me who had kidney cancer, who had one kidney, who was also into lifting. And so I ended up finding and building a community of us online. And so they've also been a really strong support because they understood exactly what I was experiencing with doctors who just did not understand how that stuff really works and just apply blanket rules. And again, I tend to soapbox, so I have to pull myself back from standing on that. But yeah, I'd say it was really about finding people who understood, and that if I didn't find those people, if I didn't find Katie, if I didn't find Kayla, if I didn't find Catherine, I'm going to name them all. If I didn't find Melissa, if I didn't find Tracy, you're the lovely JNF president, I think it would have been harder. I've been public and spoken about how the support system with my family had been, and it wasn't that great. And that's something that my partner and I have talked about and rehashed and spoken, and we've gotten better at. So it was really everyone in the cancer community that I really leaned on to get me through.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing all that. And thank you to Katie.